Okay, Arctic Wolf, you fairly recently published your 2025 AI report, and maybe before we look at what that contains, the results, etc., perhaps you can just give us a bit of background as to the sort of why you wanted to do this report. Now, is it one you do every year, or any particular reasons why the report's been carried out?
Yeah, I think, Arctic Wolf, because of the massive amount of information we collect, we always usually have good insights that we like to publish with the community. And so we do a bunch of different publications every year. We do a threat intelligence publication, obviously, but AI obviously is at the forefront of everyone's mind right now as far as security goes and how they leverage AI within security. And so we felt it was a good time to do that.
Okay, yeah, and just to sort of continue from that, I think the main finding, and perhaps no great surprise, but is that AI is now pretty much table stakes when it comes to cybersecurity. Was that a surprise at all, or were you aware that that was, coming about, if you like?
No, I mean, as an industry, we've been using kind of forms of data science for a long time. So initially, it was things like deep learning neural networking, using machine learning for identifying malware and malicious behavior and anomalies and things like that. So we've been doing that for well over a year. In fact, we just acquired a company not too long ago called Cylance, who is one of the pioneers of using machine learning to do malware detection and endpoint security. So our industry's embraced it, I think, from the early days of it being used in computer science at broad scale. And so for us to continue to be kind of the leaders, I think, in using it in a broad way is not a surprise to me at all.
Okay, and I suspect similarly, I don't know, I hear different things about AI usage, but I think the report suggests that AI adoption is widespread already and continues to grow. But I hear some reports that people that are using it are maybe underwhelmed with, the results, whether that's because they're, not using it very well. I don't know. Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to your end users, where they might be with AI.
Yeah, I think AI, like any new technology, there's a lot of people racing to use it. They're being told they need to, or they feel they're going to fall behind. And as a result, I don't think they are getting the best out of it that they can. I think they're going into it without being planful of how they're going to use it, what their problems are trying to solve, what is the best AI technology to use. I think everybody assumes a large language model is the solution to all their problems. That's not always the case. Even with a large language model, it is a large language model. So it's trained on a wide range of things. And if you have a very narrow use of it, you got to put a lot of work in for model tuning, fine tuning, prompt engineering, all those things to really get it honed into what you want and make sure you're getting answers that are legitimate. And so it's a lot of effort. And then, of course, depending upon how you use it, you have to implement it across the tools that you want it to help with. And in some cases, that's just using vendors' AI already. So you can use things like Copilot within Office 365, for example. But if you have your own technology that you've built and you're trying to use it in there, you have to, understand how to deploy it, how to get it working at scale, how to test it. So it is a pretty good effort to get it to go properly. And that's why I think a lot of companies aren't getting it to work as well as they think, because I just don't think they understand the full effort necessary.
Okay, and one of the other key findings, I think, of the report was around automation, which suggests that it's reshaping security operations. So that's a sort of simple phrase, but I expect there's a lot of complexity behind it. So when you say that, what is actually happening in practice?
Yeah, so I think there's obviously repetitive tasks that you do, certainly within some security investigations that you could automate for customers to just make that happen on their behalf so they don't have to do it. I think there's an opportunity. So I look at this and across the spectrum. There's automate, which means there's something I'm already doing today. I'm going to ask the AI to do for me. And there's transforming, which is I'm doing something today. I don't want to automate it. I want to transform how we do it because I wouldn't do it the same way I used to if I had AI. And I think people are really leaning in towards the automate side of the spectrum, where I know Arctic Wolf, for example, we're leaning in on the transformation side of the spectrum. We have a new technology here. Let's revisit how we do things and start from scratch with this tool at the center of it, as opposed to just looking at what we do today and trying to automate it.
Okay, although I think the report finds that no matter the AI and the automation, human involvement and particularly human oversight is pretty much seen as essential at this moment in time. I don't know whether you've got any thoughts as to how far humans will feel comfortable in terms of letting go of the reins for AI and automation to do things, but at least tell us where we are at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, I think within a lot of industries, but particularly in security, humans are going to be very important to the process. For one, they're going to inform the AI. They're going to see you'll have humans in the loop, reinforcement learning. So you can use those actions of the humans. The humans can review the output of the AI. There's a whole bunch of different ways to still kind of use that human, expert to kind of fine tune the AI. I think over time, AI will take on more and more of the tasks of a human, but I think we're pretty far away in our industry, for example, to have a security operations center that does not have a human at it. I don't know. I'm not going to be the first passenger on a plane when they jump out and go, "Hey, congratulations, everyone! This is the first flight ever without a human pilot. Good luck." I am grabbing my carry on. I'm off to let somebody else take that chance.
Yeah.
And I think, look, security is just as critical. So I think for us, for quite some time, we're going to be in a world where a human's going to still have some involvement. I think over time that'll shift to a little bit less. But I think, for the next, 10 years or so, I think a human is still going to be a critical element to a security operations center.
Okay, and although clearly AI and automation are making big contributions and bringing significant benefits, I think the report finds there are still some significant challenges out there, and amongst those, I think data privacy and costs were highlighted. So, what's going on? Is data privacy, is that just around developing rapidly developing regulations, or just give us a sort of
Yeah, I
snapshot of
think
what's
it covers a few different areas. So one is for vendors who are using large language models, they need to make sure they have the right license, that the data that they're using for those fine tuning efforts and just even the prompts they put in there are not making it back to those kind of frontier model owners. Customers, when I walk through our AI story, the first thing they always ask is my data going there? And of course it's not. But that's a real fear, is that as you enter information into your prompts, as you share information with the AI to ask it to do things, is that information making it into the model tuning on behalf of those large language model providers? And so there's that element of it. And then there is like what information is AI accessing in my environment that I may not be aware of? In its effort to do its job, is it grabbing things that I don't know it's grabbing? Particularly if I'm a vendor that's providing a service to a customer, I need to know how my customer's data is being leveraged. And so there's a little bit of the fear of the unknown with AI, because I also think some people think AI is sentient and it's going to figure these things out on its own, but nonetheless there is that apprehension of what's going to happen with my data, rather making it back to the Microsofts and the Anthropics and the open AIs of the world, or is it just accessing things I didn't want it to access?
okay. And I'm just following up on that. Do you think, I know there's obviously regulation, and then we see at the sort of high level, folks are sort of almost justifying taking large amounts of information because it's in, the interest of the human race to better develop AI. So do you think there is what I'm saying, I suppose there's a bit of a disjoint that the smaller folks are bound by regulations, whereas the larger guys almost just drive the coach and horses through it and say, we've got to do it for, if you want us to carry on developing AI engines. Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to
Yeah,
that
no,
split.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think when, a year or so ago, I know the EU came out with some pretty strict laws on how data could be used for AI. And I know just recently they announced they're going to kind of loosen those laws a little
Yeah.
bit, right? And I think to the point you just made, it's the technology providers going, "Hey, you're going to make it too hard for us to advance AI if we don't have access to this data." And I do think it's a double-edged sword. I do think AI is in many ways is going to make our lives unrecognizable in a positive way than it is today, but could also make our lives a nightmare if put in the wrong hands and used in the wrong way. And so I do think as an industry and as a society, we're going to have to balance those things out. And we're going to have to make sure that we're not naive enough to think that the well-intentioned people aren't always well-intentioned or may accidentally be malintended without their knowledge. And so I do think we're going to have to be very strict about what information we're allowing these providers to have. And at the same time, it is a transformative technology that we all need to embrace and recognize that it's coming and it's coming very fast. But we need to control how it comes as a society and not let a handful of companies control how it comes.
Yeah, and to that point, both I guess how it develops and the speed at which it develops. The report highlights, I guess, what everyone in IT probably knows, that there's a growing skills shortage, whether it's for AI or other disciplines. So, how big a concern do you think that? I mean, do you think it's going to actually be a bottleneck for development of AI and other sort of IT disciplines, or are measures in place, shall we say, to address it in a timely fashion?
I honestly don't think it will be. I think, we think of AI and we immediately jump to, PhD data scientists. And the vast majority of people working in AI are going to be the people implementing it. So, data engineers, people building out the infrastructure for the AI to run, for the AI to those models to operate. I think we have ample of those. And most, universities across the world for the last, 10 years or so have had some computer vision, statistics or something that's kind of enabling data scientists. And so I think the market will drive those kind of educational factors and just technical experts shifting their expertise into that area. And I think we'll be fine on the resources. I think you'll run into resource shortage, and it's very similar to cybersecurity. Is there's always this talk about resource shortage. I think cybersecurity companies like Arctic Wolf have a good time hiring cybersecurity experts just because we're a cybersecurity company. But if you work for a plumbing supply company and you wanted to hire a cybersecurity expert, you're probably going to have a little more of a tougher time, not because there's not enough of them, just because they want to go work, in their field as opposed to, go do it in a company that's not related to their industry. So I think AI is going to be very similar. I think for the companies where there's going to be a great story, I think you're going to have resources you can gather. I think for the companies that are going to kind of use it, as an ancillary technology, they may have trouble kind of getting the talent they would like to get.
Okay, and I'm just wondering as well, does the report, or if not the report, whether you can say sort of anecdotally where AI may be having the biggest impact when it comes to cybersecurity? And I'm perhaps thinking both, as you mentioned earlier, for good or bad, or, the good things it's doing. But yeah, so yeah, where is it having the biggest impact as far as you can see?
Yeah. So in cybersecurity, we've always talked about it. It's like an arms race, right? We have adversarial people in the industry that we have to fight, and then we have the good guys as well. And it was always this kind of back and forth. We were always hoping to be in front of the game, and they were always finding ways around us. And I think when we did embrace other forms of AI, deep learning, for example, we finally started to get in front of them a little bit. We finally were on our front foot. And I think we've maintained a pretty good posture against the adversaries. Now with AI, it's like a nuclear arms race. Like the stakes are higher. It's moving faster. It's much more dangerous, and the adversaries are using it very aggressively for phishing attacks, which is still one of the easiest ways to get into a company. They're able to easily replicate company executives' voices, even their own videos. Be able to trick people with very believable emails. So that's simple. But now we've also seen, that they're launching, vulnerability scans, and in some cases, there's talks about, completely autonomous ransomware attacks coming, and so the stakes have gotten a lot higher on our end. We will continue to use it for those, deep learning scenarios, for malware detection, anomaly detection, behavior detection. What we can do now, though, with LLMs and SLMs, small language models, is we can start to automate the actions of a security operator to go much faster than a human can. And so when there is a need for a deeper investigation, something that AI can't solve on its own, that human takes some time to get there. And now with AI, we can get there faster. So we can resolve issues faster. We can look more broadly than we could before. We can find things perhaps that we wouldn't find before because we can correlate a lot more information faster than ever before. So I think we have a great opportunity as an industry to get a leg up on the adversaries, even though they're using the same technology. And so I think it's the same game we've been playing for years. It's just higher stakes now.
No, that's fair enough. And does the report say anything when it comes to AI cybersecurity implementations in the way of measuring success? Bear in mind what what I think we touched on earlier, that there's, I won't say overwhelming disappointment, but there are a lot of AI projects don't perhaps deliver as expected. Is that because the metrics are wrong, or what? Yeah, what's going on with how people work out whether their AI project's going well or not?
Yeah, so I think it's people racing to use it, and not really being planful and thinking through the problem they're specifically trying to solve, the data needed to solve that problem, making sure you put the effort in to do any fine tuning of models or the proper prompt injecting if you're using LLMs and all those things. And I think as a result, if you don't do those things, the LLM is going to give you very mixed results. And as a result, I think that's what most people are running into. They're just trying to racing into it. They may be even using off the shelf models and trying to ask it questions and think it's going to get the answer it's going to get. Even when they pointed at their own data sets, if you don't tune those models properly, you don't use things like retrieval, augmented generation with additional information, you don't do that properly, you're not going to get the results out of it. And then on the securing side of it, I think AI is very similar to when the cloud started coming and everyone raced to the cloud because their CFO told them it was going to be cheaper and you got to get to the cloud. And then everyone got to the cloud. They're like, oh crap, now how do we secure this? And then a scramble to secure. I think you're seeing that with AI, and people are starting to recognize there's a lot of risk to your AI infrastructure. It's making decisions for your business. And if someone could compromise that in some form or fashion, get it to make the decisions they want to make, it could be very disruptive to your business. And so I think people are starting to recognize the need to kind of monitor their AI infrastructure, to secure their AI infrastructure. And there's different methodologies for doing that. Some traditional IT security will work, but in some cases you need very specific AI security mechanisms to provide that. So there's the kind of rush to market. They're not getting the results they want. And then when they rush to market, they also realize they didn't secure anything.
And maybe I don't know, any sort of final thoughts, anything to add in terms of where we are now with sort of AI and security, and how the link between those two may be developing. I mean, you mentioned it's sort of a nuclear arms race. Are you sort of, I suppose, confident that the good folks will always keep the less well-intentioned folks in check, or do you worry there might be something unpleasant on the horizon? Just your thoughts.
Well, look, I think in security we always plan for the worst and hope for the best because that's just our nature. Look, I do think when you put powerful AI in the hands of nation state actors, I think there's potential for some pretty dangerous things to happen. I think you also put the AI in the hands of the defense side of those nation state actors. So I think hopefully that counteracts that. As far as the commercial world goes, we've been fighting these ransomware hackers for a decade. Every year, I do an interview like this around our threat report, and they're like, "Oh, what's the number one threat?" And it's still ransomware because it works. They make tons of money with it, and why would they change? And it works because it's typically taking advantage of a human. They take advantage of that weak link, all the technology you deploy in the world, and you still have a human who makes a mistake, and they find their way in and go from there. And that's going to be the same thing with AI. And so we're still in the same battle. We both have the same tools, at least, to use against one another. I do think AI does give the defense side the ability to be way more predictive and way more proactive than ever before, and finally, get a bigger leg up. I think we still have a leg up technology-wise. It's that human that we still got to solve for. And I think with AI, we can do a lot more to arm that human.
Excellent. And maybe just on a slightly different tack, before we finish, finally, I think you've I'd made some recent additions to the Threat Intelligence Plus solution. So I don't know if you can just give us a brief overview of what's new with that solution.
Yeah, so our Threat Intelligence Plus solution now provides the ability to get your threat intelligence through sticks and taxi. So prior, we had a pure API interface to the tool. So you can pull all the threat intel out of our threat intelligence platform into whatever mechanism you want. Now you can collect them through the industry standard sticks and taxi feeds. So if you already have a solution that supports those, it just seamlessly integrates with that solution, and you can now start to pull that information directly into those related products. So it's a much easier way to kind of tie into the world class kind of threat intel that we have because of the massive size of our operation, and now it's just easier for you to leverage it.
Okay, well, that's great. It's been fantastic to chat, and thank you so much for sharing insights into the report and your thoughts as to how the landscape for cybersecurity is developing into the future. So, Dan, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.